Hello, my friends. I'm Rick, and hey, y'all. Any of y'all had a chance to look at that hour-long live video? It's a case in point, right? The uh, Basically, it was housekeeping for cycle 18. I've been putting it off for a frickin' month, so of course I have mixed opinions on any of this stuff. I want to use the light, but it's I don't know. It's kind of gloomy a little bit in here, right? But we don't have, I don't know, some of it down. That's the off. Is this down? There we go. Tone it down just a hair. The It's 6 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. This is a rare day for me. It's been a long weekend. It's kind of a mini vacation of sorts. I was very busy on Friday and Saturday. Got quite a bit done. It's not much done outside as I kind of wanted to, but actually got more than I planned on doing. I had to mow for the fellow next door. It took me most of the day. Had a nice panic attack when my rider wouldn't restart when I was clear over there, and like a dumbass, I had the engine engaged, the blade engaged, and I went freaking out all the way over the neighbor guy because he's got a little bit of skill, and thought, can you come over here at least? If we can't get it started, at least could you help me pull it? Get your truck and help me drag it back over here to my yard so it doesn't get stolen. And first thing he says, so you got the blade engaged? I said, well, of course I don't. And it starts up, and I'm like, I've been under a hell of a lot of stress. I'm not gonna lie. It's been pretty rough financially. It's just I'm not. I'm at that point where I know in my heart, if we have anything major go down, we're in trouble. I mean, there's nowhere to go except crying and begging, and I hate that with a passion, and it's becoming harder and harder for me to not want to go find a job that pays better with benefits. I mean, there's my that's the big problem. If you're all, for the majority of y'all, you know what I'm talking about. The cost of everything's just kept going up and up, and then all these companies are screaming about how bad it is and how they can't pay their help any better, and yet corporation after corporation, record profits, massive profits, and their top CEOs, their top people are getting massive bonuses at the same time. That's one of the things that just twerks me something fierce. And anybody who cries about socialism needs to be slapped upside their damn head. Because guess what? America is a socialist society in many ways. Capitalism is not how things run if it's not run fairly. And guess what? It ain't been fair in a long damn time. And that's in part all the parties involved are in cahoots. So there are all kinds of bullshit and factors going on, and we can make all those arguments, and you can make them all you want, but I know damn well how I feel, and that's how I'm going to stand by how I feel. So anyway, and then I had my sister and her wife come over, and which they were over for 3 hours. It was pretty good, although toward the very end I started having another freak out over the politics crap. But that's me because I don't have a lot of voice or outlets. I can't talk to some people about anything. I can't, and it's them or you. I mean, and then unfortunately you guys get a lot of my crap too. So this hour-long video, immediately right off the top, it's running 2 to 3 programs. I have Google open so I can have the YouTube creator thing on there, which then links to the XSplit, which is what I'm using now to do these videos. And XSplit allows me to do the down view. Well, I get a little sign that pops up probably about the time that the sound quit working that says my CPU is at its max. Now this is not the Apple laptop that was sent to me a couple weeks ago. That's sitting out front there. I'm still trying to figure out how to work the Apple stuff. Mostly it's just been a factor of time. I got work-wise, I've got insane. I put in an insane amount of hours. Last week was brutal. I had a near miss with it was a derecho. They said it was a tornado, but it was a derecho. Tuesday afternoon, I worked a 15-16 hour day Tuesday, and in the middle of the early afternoon, I drove from Des Moines to Ottumwa, Iowa. It's about a couple hour drive by our truck, and to get a grease interceptor at a McDonald's down there. It was 2,000 gallons. So I'm coming back with about 33,000 pound truck, as opposed to the 18,000 what it weighs when it's empty. And I'm past a city called Oskaloosa. Now William Penn has a university there that we service, and there's a couple other places. But I'm passing there, just past the exit, when my phone, I'm listening to a fellow gamer's podcast, and I think it was one of Sven's things. I'm not sure which one it was. And suddenly it cuts off, and this big warning pops up. There's a tornado in your immediate vicinity. Well, hello. I don't get that sort of thing very often. So that was a moment, and all I could see ahead was some pretty ugly stuff in the far distance. But it was actually sun shining. It was kind of cloudy, and it was partly cloudy, and the sun was out, and it was blue sky. And I'm thinking, where the hell? What are they talking about? And, if they're talking this stuff way up there, I mean, that's a long way from here. And then the semi is coming at me. Suddenly he hauls out. He hauls over to the side and then jumps out of his truck and goes into the ditch and lays down. And I'm looking at him thinking, oh crap, what does he see? I don't see. And I look in the back of my mirrors, and all of a sudden it's just whoosh. This huge wall of water and wind come flying. The truck's bucking and rocking. I get over to the stop. I get my phone out. The first thing I get is Facebook. So I put out this thing to my sister saying, I don't know what's going on. They say I'm in the middle of a tornado. Just remember I have insurance and make sure your wife cashes in on it. And then suddenly I lose signal. So the tower in the area got cut off, and it was just. And it was over in a second. It was less than a minute. It just felt like forever, but it was over in a minute. And in the process, a couple roads, not road signs, but construction, because they were doing some road construction. I just passed it, and a couple of their signs and some of their cones and stuff come flying past the truck when that wall hit me. And I heard something bang off the back of the truck, and I wasn't sure what that was. And so the truck's balking and rocking, and I'm freaking out. I say panicking, but freaking out. I'm looking at the ditch over here, and it's full of water, and I'm thinking, I'm not getting out of this truck for nothing. About that time, them signs went flying by, and of course the back of the truck is steel and it's loaded with 2,000 gallons of greasy McDonald's water. So, and then all the hoses on the back. It was probably the safest. If it was a tornado that was going to pick my truck up, I was hosed no matter what. Now they tell you to go lie down in the ditch. The idea for that, what they don't really like to tell you, is if the tornado wind comes and gets you, you're screwed. I don't care where you hide, and going up under a bridge is the worst place to go. They've determined that. But laying down on the ground isn't going to save you either. What that does is it gets you slow enough that flying debris, majority of it hopefully will pass you over. But if a vehicle decides to land on you, or a big I-beam or a telephone pole or something, it was just the way it was going to be. Karma and fate. So it was in and over before I knew it. And then after I got my wits back together and made a few calls, and my panicked wife and my sister and them, I drove down to Knoxville, Iowa, to a Hy-Vee down there that we service, and got out of the truck, and I'm looking around the back of the truck, and here it is. One of my work lights up here are shattered, and there's a handle on a bubble that we use to determine how full the truck is. It's shattered. Thankfully, the bubble itself hadn't broke, but it was shattered. And then one of the big hoses in the back's got a nice gouge in it. So whatever this thing was, it hit that angle of the truck and then bounced off. My guess is that one sign that passed me on the left was what bounced off of it. And there was a brief video on Facebook that some of the Facebook people got to see of me panicking in the truck and telling my sister to remember about the insurance. And in the distance, you can see the truck, the semi that had pulled over. You may even see the guy down in the ditch if you can look, zoom in hard enough, and you can see the two signs that were flipped over and laying on the ground that had passed the truck. By this time, the worst of the truck's still bucking and stuff, but the worst of it seemed to be over. And of course, it is what it is. So on my hour-long video was basically housekeeping for cycle 18. I went through my exchange, figured out, did all the math and stuff, figured out, even with the money I sent along with my my merchant or my delegation to the trade world, I still end up generating 232 credits for the cycle, which brings my grand total up to 1,031.5. 1,035. Let me get that in the right place. Get that decimal point in the wrong place, and then you're like, what? I don't know what that. I got a billion? No. 3.3. So, yeah, I just did that. I just repeated what I just tried not to do. Jesus. I get frustrated real easy sometimes. So it's like the live video thing. I don't think I'm going to be doing too many more live videos, if any, again, with this setup I got currently. My intentions is to get the generous gift that was sent to me up and running for out front. And we'll look at how good it does videos. If it does videos better than this, I might just leave it in here for doing videos on until this one dies, because this one is going to die eventually. And I'm not 100% sure that a lot of the problems going on with it isn't part of that. Of course, my Norton anti-security software, which I'm beginning to loathe with a passion, just keeps flashing, oh, you can do all this, broken this, that, and the other thing. Well, great. I don't know half that stuff is, and so when I click the button, well, they want you to pay for additional services. I'm sorry, that ain't the money. I ain't got no money for it. And if it means my system's old and bogging down, it's because the laptop's over 2 years old, and I've done a lot with this thing. I've done a lot with this HP the laptop, whatever it is. So I mean, it is what it is. Uh, we get the other one running. I did notice the pad that was sent to me seems to have a camera on it with recording ability. I'm looking forward to getting that thing up and fully functioning once again. I was fiddling with it last night, but I kept falling asleep in the chair, so I just put it back away. I need to get a case for it to help protect it, because these things are fragile. And I want to be able to take it with me to work so I can read books, read the PDFs and stuff on it. There's a lot of novels and stories that's just not worth printing out to read, but I would love to read them for BattleTech specifically. And then also because it does have this camera ability, so if I can do videos while I'm out in the field, I can do short videos and stuff, limited podcast kind of stuff out in the field, and then transfer them over and then upload them to the channel. For the channel wise, y'all know that we've got we broke 1,000. We're at 1,026 subscribers. That's great. The channel is monetized, sort of. I still have to go through the step where you sit an hour plus dealing with the tax thing. And then, of course, if you look at the fine print, well, currently the channel generates about $13.60 a month, which is not sufficient enough to get any money, which I always thought was bullshit part on YouTube. That's a cop-out at YouTube, and you damn well know it. You should accumulate that. If I can understand you don't want to make a payment of $100, anything less than $100, I get that, but you should accumulate that. So that $13 over 8 months would equal $100, and then you get a $100 deposit in your account. That would be fair. And it seems like what they're doing is not fair. But then what do you do? What can you do? We're lucky we're privileged to use the product for free for what we do as it is. It's a process, It's a process, and the odds are I've got 1,000 plus videos on this channel. I would need 5,000 or 6,000 videos based on sheer numbers to generate more than $100 worth of ad revenue on a month, because most of these videos they're long videos, and it. Come on, think about it. How often do you not just click away? I'm the same thing. I'll listen to for 5 or 10 minutes, and unless I'm really engaged in it, I tend to scoop off to the next thing. This is why they say really short videos. The problem is with real short videos, you really can't do a good review of something in less than 5 minutes. You can give an overview, but then it's just an overview. Then you go back and make another video. I don't know. I just don't have any answers to how that stuff works, but it's the way things are, right? Yeah, see, it's like so when the sound cut off, so I got a better part of 40 minutes of me just moving my hands around and jotting stuff down without any rhyme or reason. So the cycle did a pretty decent. I didn't have any ship traffic come in and sell anything of significance, sell or buy. What I did have is the one merchant, smuggler disguised as a merchant. He's selling some high-end luxury organics. Now that's a tricky thing, because organics can be animals, critters, can be plants, it can be any number of things. It can fit into a number of categories, or it could be exotic materials made thereof. So fur coats, for example, would be considered a luxury organic, although it would also be considered a luxury good. Period. So it's a matter of how we roll it up. And then there's a set of formula stuff in the core book for dealing with this, and that's what I'll do a short video on that and go through it. I figured that I got some notes down here where I know what I want to do to finish the cycle out now, check with the high-end organic stuff in the smuggler, figure out what the hell I'm building next, decide what I'm doing with Chastity Bake now that she and the first squad of the first Spec Ops squad has graduated from my dojo. Then I've assigned just six general specialist agents to the training at the dojo to gain that skill. I've switched my production for my factory for small arms and small goods was AR automatic rifles Tech 2 So I produced another 1 ton of that, and I think that's 25 more rifles, which would go into my, my warehouse, which I believe is back here. So when I look back here, I have 25 there now. Now I have 50. So that gives us, more. I can now go back and return to my military squad and retrieve the ballistic rifles, the BRs that they carry, and give them ARs, so that'll be more potent in the field. What I chose to do, research-wise, was to research jump packs, because that's something that I can do for my infantry and my agents, and give me an advantage in mobility on the battlefield and in other ways. It's also one of those things that I've never, I've had them in here, but I personally have never used them. So, I mean, see, IJPs, Tech, and these are Tech 1 item, so, and that's what we're going to do, and then I will get 1 full ton, which I think is 50 jetpacks, because I looked at, one of the things I looked at on the live video was the equipment guide to figure that out, and so that will give me 50 tons, or 50 units, and then I could take 20 or 25 of those units, assign them to my militia. So now my militia would light jump infantry with automatic rifles. So they've significantly improved both their infield mobility, on the battle map mobility, their tactical uses, and their firepower has increased. So ideally, one of the next things I might want to research would be Tech 2 combat armor, CBA. So then, because I can produce light body armor and personal body armor all day long, based on this same system, but what I would need is medium body armor, MBA. So we want to give them better protection in the field, which is something I may want to do on the next drill round. Then I put a note down: find a way to increase my carbon production. My carbon production is very tiny, and my consumption is very large. And aside from that, that puts me at a big negative on my exchange, and I want to kind of whittle that down. The other thing about carbon, and carbon is this catch-all phrase for everything from rock, stone, to wood, logs, anything that's considered carbon-based. You could make an argument, plants and animals too, but they have their own category. So in this case, a lot of the other fits under carbon. And we use carbon a lot in construction processes because this is a lot of raw material, stone, rock, gravel, wood, whatever, that goes into constructing things, and this is or building stuff, and that's one of the reasons the demand's high. And the population consumes a lot of it for a lot of personal uses. So we have a high demand and a low production. The obvious way is to build more factories that produce specifically for carbon. So I can, and then I can even choose to create a quarry or a forestry thing or something like that if I want. There's some advantages to doing that in some aspects. So if I choose to create a stone quarry to produce X amount of tons of carbon, for example, then I can make that effort to just, if I have an empty research slot, I could throw in that stone quarry in there to see what kind of stone it is. And maybe it turns out that it's some kind of exotic marble. At that point, then, we're now producing an exotic carbon that's worth a whole lot more than what it would be as just general carbon. So we can utilize that as carbon in our construction. So we build a building and we use our high-end construction carbon, or high-end carbon in lieu of regular carbon construction material. Then we would incorporate that into the aesthetics of the building and perhaps some kind of modifier for social happiness or society happiness, that kind of crap. The other item is to manufacture it as a sellable item that you market on your exchange and sell to other planets, to others, and make a lot more money than you would normal carbon. But we're just talking general carbon production here. So one of the things I want to do is go and get Tech Zero builds. Tech Zero builds are the bare bones, and they don't require any technical expertise from our perspective. It's anything we can do today, for the most part, that we take for granted would qualify as that. So building most of our homes today are Tech Zero homes, because there's nothing elaborate to them. There's no high-tech stuff going into them. Now, that's an after fact. You can argue that there's this, that, and the other thing, but I'm not going to argue the semantics of that. So I could just set up a forest guy, and I'll give him, the material needed to build himself a house and maybe a shop, and then the tools. I'm going to assign X amount of tools and maybe a portion of a vehicle to him. And at this point, he's going to then have produce a half a ton of carbon every cycle at a specific. So his needs versus the cost. So his needs need to be less than what the cost is to produce. The amount that they produce. Otherwise, you're losing. But sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to go in the negative on something to gain the material you need because it's the only way you can get it. The other way, like I said, would be to approach one of my platinums to invest in building an actual a CCB or customized commercial build. So at this point, where we would build a full-on, forestry service or corporation who then produces 5 tons of carbon every cycle versus the half a ton, and then so forth and so forth. And or we could be the mega quarry, whatever, however you want to look at it. So that's another thing I want to. So I'll do a video on that for the excuse me, for the cycle 18, so we can talk about that. And then we also want to do a little deeper look on the large herd fauna that was discovered on Campus Folly. Problem with that is, as I said, as I tried to explain in the live video, I have only one drop ship, and it's currently tasked the entire cycle. It's making 10 trips, which it's allowed to do. Small craft are allowed to operate daily, so in this case the shuttle can make 10 trips back and forth to orbit to retrieve passenger, the lifeboats first. They're going to rescue 300 plus people, and then we need to sort that out and see exactly who they are and where they're coming and where they were going and whether or not they're going to become members of my colony. And the components, the surviving components from the destroyed ship. Excuse me. So I want to go up and recover as many of those as I can, and then repurpose them. And many of them, some of them will be damaged, and some of them won't be, but most of them will be, and I'll have to repair them, and goes through the cost of how we do that. But it just helps build up my pool of components for the construction of a future ship. So addressing the shuttle issue. We can manufacture shuttles. There are Tech 1 shuttles, the drop shuttle being one. So I could have my shipyard as a component build, like building right now. It's currently building sublight drives. So there's going to be completion in one more cycle. I'll have 5 sublight drives that I will put in my warehouse for future, either upgrading my existing ships to make them faster and give them more capabilities, or to install in a future ship I plan on building. The other option, this opens up for what will I build for the next 5, what will I put in my queue for the next phase of construction for my shipyard. And so I could choose the cargo bay, or the cargo shuttle 1, or a passenger shuttle 1, or the drop shuttle 1, which is Tech 1 items. And at that point, I would go through the needs list just like I would any other build, and I would look for all the need material that I can provide, and then I deduct them from what I have in the exchange. This leaves a lot of material I don't have. So what we do is what's called speculative purchase. This is allowed by the rules. I'm going to go and look at all the material I don't have, and I'm going to take it times the specific column in my exchange for the item. So if I need heavy steel and I have no heavy steel, and my demands is 2.5 credits a ton on my exchange to buy any heavy steel that somebody can sell me, that would be my target modifier for. And if, let's say I need 10 tons of heavy steel, which shuttle should not take anything like that, just 10 tons. So 10 times 2.7, so now we're at 2270, 22.7 credits in manufacturing costs towards this shuttle, in addition to all the other crap. So this could run into hundreds of credits. Now I have the surplus of credits we have established. I've got over 1,000 credits right now. So in theory, I can hot foot myself this damn shuttle. So we look at the value of the shuttle and value of buying one. And if it costs me 200 credits to buy something that would cost me 20 credits at, if a ship was selling it to me, or at a trade world, I could have 10 shuttles for the one it cost me to build versus the one that how desperate are we to have that single shuttle? Sometimes, the patience is a virtue. Sometimes the outlay seems great at the beginning, unless the need is extremely dire, then you're kind of forced your hand. perhaps you're just better off not doing that, because the cost of the credits, I could then, I could then send another courier to the trade world once I get my operation established there. The next load of supplies, resources they send to sell, I could also send along 200 credits and have them buy me 10 shuttles, and then or 5 shuttles, and then have the surplus money left over to pay for the shipping to ship them back to the house. Kind of one of those things. How do you balance? What do you balance out? All right. So the last thing is Chastity Blake, 007, I believe. I have to look at her stats and see exactly what ministry she's part of. But anyway, she graduated from the martial arts dojo, and so she has the additional martial arts skill that she didn't have before, which gives her a slight edge in hand-to-hand combat when that scenario would play out. So now my point would be to decide where to assign her to next. And that means going back over cycle 17 and 16 to see where the events I had done in those cycles, if they're concluded to my satisfaction. So I've got Fred Dodge, for example, could use some training here as well, but he's so valuable in the field, it's hard for me to want to pull him out. And I could reassign Chastity to follow up on what he has started, trying to get further into that gutter gang leader position, try to get some closure on that, and then go ahead and tuck him into this group here and initiate. So before the cycle 18 is completed, I have to decide for sure if it's one of my named personalities that I'm going to send to this training or not. And I can also assign my house lord, etc., etc. The House Lord now doesn't really have a whole lot to do, so they can attend these things unless some event occurs that absolutely requires them to be present. You could set up the martial art training, give them some kicks of some experience and some abilities. I mean, there's plenty of stuff going around there. It's just a matter of, there's a reason why all of our ministers have sub-ministers. So we can have our minister of intelligence, for example, take this class. This means this minister is no longer available for the house for that 5 cycles. And if there's any modifiers that person added to the ministry, then they would be suspended for that 5 cycles. Then we would look at the sub-minister, or their number 2, and that person would be in charge for those 5 cycles. And whatever modifier they may have, which is generally going to be less than their superior, can be applied temporarily to whatever. And they also gain additional experience or ranking boost because they're now fulfilling the primary role that they're subordinate to. It's just one of those little things we talk about and can and can't do. So, anyway, I don't know. I miss doing live videos. In the older days, I didn't have this problem. I didn't use XSplit either. And it's the only free software I got that I've learned to bumble my way through to do videos. I've done literally hundreds and hundreds of them on this program. It has some more advanced features that I can afford, if I can afford to pay for a monthly subscription to it, which I can't do. I just don't have the money to do it. I've tried and I just couldn't sustain it. So I have to live within my means and live with what I have to do, which is sad. I mean, ideally, if I had some decent, serious money, I would have vested in an actual tower, computer for the house. I would have a full-on computer, a fixed, permanent one, opposed to these laptops. And there's so much more CPU power available. And I don't know what the CPU is on the Apple just yet. Mark told me that there is a recording program on there of some sort that's generic, I think. I'm going to explore it once I figure out what's going on and see what I can do and what I can't do with it. I suspect it will be a little while yet before I get that confident with it. I had my sister look at it when she was here yesterday, and she was like, I don't know nothing about Apples. It's like a Chevy and Ford. If you grew up with Fords, you understand a lot of things about Fords, and you look at the other car manufacturers and you understand the basics, the nuances. You either don't care or they're beyond your ability. And mine's the same. I grew up with Chevys and GMs, and Fords are like the uber enemy as far as my family was concerned for most of our lives. The only Ford I ever owned was that RV, and that was out of desperation. In reality, the RV the motor in the truck was very reliable. It's the nickel and dime crap. So a GM and a Chevy, in my experience growing up, will nickel and dime you to death. Lots of little things go wrong, keep breaking down all the time, and you fix them, replace them, etc., etc. Where the Ford keeps going on until something fails. And when it fails, it's a spectacular fail that's hideously expensive. And a lot of Ford products don't interchange with their own Ford products. They purposely design them. A buddy of mine had his problems. He had a Mercury, and I think it was the Mercury, or it might have been a Lincoln. Anyway, he had the front headlight assembly just 2 years, 3 years, where between the models was vastly different because it was just size, just enough that you only had that 3 year window to find that part, and nothing else before would fit. And aftermarket parts were hard to find at that point, but we're talking then there, So anyway, this was my follow-up to the bogus live video that was a flop, and I will probably be hiding it or removing it completely from the channel because, like I said, it cuts out 10-15 minutes in, the sound cuts out. And now I'm guessing that's when the CPU warning came up that we maxed out and we're losing certain features. Well, sound is an important feature, right? Anyhow, till next time, I'm Rick. Little Missy's floating around here somewhere. You guys have yourself a great Memorial Day weekend. Beginning of summer, man. Summer's here. Love it or hate it, right? It is what it is. And on with the show, right? Or into with it.
It just irritates me to no end.